to Barbells, Business, and Boobs, where we discuss navigating everyday life as lifters, business owners, and being a woman in a male dominated industry. Today, we are so excited to have Sam Belliveau on the podcast. She is Canada's strongest woman for 3 years, 2021, 22, 23, has competed in a handful of big shows. World record dumbbell holder. I'll let her get into that. So without further ado, Christy and I are so excited to have you on, Sam. Welcome.
Thank you, ladies.
Welcome.
I'm excited.
So tell us about this world record because I wanted to make sure it came from you.
Okay, so in March at the Arnold, Ohio, we had a max circus dumbbell, which was kind of cool because the record has been standing now for a couple years. And back in 2021, I tried to break it back when it was 175, and I failed the 180. But nonetheless, I came back 2 years later, hitting 185 for a double on the massive Arnold Classic stage, which was an incredible performance or incredible experience. And I delivered quite a good performance.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Christy,
it
you
was so
saw it
on
live.
point. I saw it live. I think I have video of it, and I fangirled afterwards. I aligned to meet Sam, which is really cool because I just think Sam's a really great representation in our sport. I competed with Sam before, way back in the day, and I remember being really nervous to Arnold, and she was just so excited and fiery. It kind of made me calm down. So always really good energy. But that was a very electric moment. So that kind of goes up on my top Arnold moments ever. And I was really, really close. So it was really cool. But I mean, I just can't fathom some of these weights that everyone's putting up now. But that was an awesome moment for sure.
Yeah. 185 pounds times 2, to put that in perspective, at the Strongman Arnold 2016, I remember that we had a 100-pound circus dumbbell for reps, and that weight, almost 10 years ago, that was kind of unheard of. So to put 85 pounds on that, it just goes back that, every sport, it's always raising the bar, always raising the bar. And I have no doubt that all three of us will see a 200-pound circus dumbbell probably within the next year and a half, I would say.
Yeah.
Is that something on your radar, Sam?
Yes, Sam, my challenge right here.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Who's going to do
it? We were just talking about that, because we were kind of putting our dumbbell. We have 12 circus dumbbell in our gym, so we were starting to put them at warm-up weights for me going into training and whatnot. And I asked Max for a 200-pound dumbbell, and he said, no, I'll stop it at 195 because you can hit that 200. Really respectful and confident on a stage whenever you're called in for. So I am looking forward to hitting that 200. I think I have a little bit more in me. I've hit 196 in the gym before, on a 198 actually, on a online video submission for the Shaw Classic last year. So I'm just pretty confident in that 200 pounds there, and I just want to keep rising the bar until I can't no more.
Yeah, you are just so proficient at circus dumbbell. You're really, really an excellent lifter in all ways. But Brittany, we saw her at the Clash. Remember, there was circus dumbbell for reps. Remember, you're just always killing it. So I think circus dumbbell is the hardest thing to teach clients, especially remotely.
Clash was a max dumbbell. It was my first time hitting. Yeah, it was a max lift. It was my first time hitting. I hit 183.9 to set a new world record. Then it didn't really get the recognition. I think just because the federation was quite new at the time and it was just growing. But I did hit it. It was 183.9. Yeah, as a middleweight.
Yeah, and I think it's since then I've expected a big dumbbell out of you always, but that was whoa, that was really crazy. But I do think it's a lift that's hardest to teach clients. Do you have any tips on what the most important things when you're learning circus dumbbell are?
I honestly think it's about being comfortable getting uncomfortable. The dumbbell's really not comfortable. Every time you see a new client, I always have people sending me a bunch of videos trying to get them working on their technique. We're all really unique when it comes to a one-arm press. Not everyone presses the same thing as a log or axle, but if there's one thing with the dumbbell is get comfortable with the technique, with being uncomfortable with such a big load on one shoulder, but also try to maximize using your whole body. A lot of people think the one arm press, it's on half of your body, so they'll utilize their leg underneath the dumbbell in that part of their body when you should actually be using your whole body. So trying to bring that dumbbell as centered as you can in your body to maximize both leg drive, because there's no way I can press with one arm 185 pounds, but bringing that perfect leg drive and that dip in is what has made me achieve such a big number. But practice, practice, practice.
Yeah, absolutely. Practice, practice, practice. It's so true because when clients first started, I think it's the most frustrating strongman movement. I've always struggled with pressing in general, but especially the circus dumbbell because, like you said, it's so uncomfortable. I know one time, right when I hit a PR, I actually like dropped it on my head after, which is pretty common if they have
Yeah.
like the loose ends, and I had like a Harry Potter scar there for like 4 years. So, and then I know I have a friend that had like cauliflower ear. Look, she literally looked like a wrestler because of it. So, would you say like when you first started, what were kind of like the numbers you were hitting? Like what was the empty circus dumbbell? Because I just want to put it in perspective for people.
Yeah, so when I first started, all I had was like those commercial gym dumbbells to train with. So it was really inconvenient for me. But then fortunately I met Max and I moved halfway across the world and I had access to Circus Dumbbell. So I still go back and look at those videos, and I remember the first day that I hit, it was a big black bell in the corner and it was 135 pounds and only the guys were using it, and I was like, one day I'm gonna hit it. And then I think it was like within a couple months being with Max, I tried it and I got it. So I was like already at 135, which was already at that time, this is like 5 years ago, was still a really big number.
Yeah.
And then I really got hurt on my pelvis. So I had to like change techniques on everything. And the one thing I really enjoyed was the dumbbell. Like I just really liked the movement. I love how I was able to get under, like I was really comfortable from the start. So I changed my whole technique. I changed, like I used to like, I remember I would go really slow in my videos to really be critical on my technique. And I just drilled it. And next thing you know, I was hitting 145, 150, 160, and there was one time I remember I hit a 165 for 5 reps within, it was like a 30 seconds, and Max was like, "You're gonna hold that record one day," and I was like, "No," and he's like, "Trust me," and then yeah.
Then it happened. That's another important point that you mentioned. And I'm curious, Christy, has your technique ever changed over the years? Because I know I had 3 different ways I'd press the circus dumbbell depending upon how the circus dumbbell itself was built.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me, it's been mostly based on navigating injury as well. So having to change based on that. And honestly, more so for me, just on just getting injured and being like, hey, I just need to have better form in general. Really. So I haven't had to switch it up too much, just, technique wise, but to navigate injury. Yeah. And I think Sam's a great example of that as well, just because, you get injured, you get frustrated, but there's always ways to work around it.
Hmm. Yeah.
So one more question on the dumbbell, and then we kind of move on because I want to hear about like how you even got in the sport. But okay, so flashback to March, Chrissy saw it live. When you hit the 185-pound dumbbell times 2, you knew you had the record. What did that feel like? Because I know that was something that like I'm guessing you probably went into it like knowing you were going to do it, but what did it feel like to actually get the down command and like have your name, official record?
Well, because I was one of the first ones to go, because I don't know what was the last event, but I had finished probably bottom, so I was one of the first ones to go. And after seeing, so we all went for one round, nobody would hit it. Mel P was super close, so I was thinking she'll hit a single. I don't know what I was able to hit. I've hit it. I've hit 188 for a double in the gym, but it was a little bit more than 30 seconds. But again, there's not 5,000 people screaming at you in front of you, and there's not so much pressure, and I guess so much motivation going out. But I hit that 175 in the back in front of the judge. Max went to get him just to make sure that I could get a call in front of him. and I was really confident then. So game plan was, well, you have 3 times to go out. There's no point of going right away to the record. Go out, feel the platform, feel the crowd, feel the bell, just get yourself in that groove. So when I went to that third bell and hit it super easy, I was like, damn, that's mine today if nobody else wants it. So going into our second round, Mel was super close again. And I'm thinking, damn, okay, let's go 30 seconds. So that first dumbbell, I kind of feel like I blacked out because I was such in the zone. Like I can get such in a tight black zone and it's just me and that implement, especially when it comes to the dumbbell. I had envisioned, I had engraved in my head, I had written down so many times that I was going to be that new record holder. So for me, it was just about execution. Everything else was set and I had seen it. I have already like accomplished it in my head. So I was like, just go out there and execute. That second lift, when I got the down command and I look over, the game plan was if you look up and there's like 11 seconds left, go back for a third. If not, call it. So I looked over and there's about, I think, 9 or 8 seconds left and I knew time was up. I looked at Max and he said, he's done and he's crying, but he's like, you're done. That's when I kind of just like all the emotions came through and everyone felt I just felt so much energy and so much pride, and people knew I was a good dumbbell presser. And to be able to showcase that and see my dad on the front row freaking out and just having that moment it was a really good moment in my career. It's probably the highlight of my career so far. I hope I get some more changes or chances like this in my life, but I will forever be grateful for moments like this. And it was a moment.
Yeah, you did such a good job the way you just described that, and I could literally hear your pitch in your voice. I like had goosebumps, and like I don't know if
I
you can
got
see, but
chills.
I'm tearing up a little bit because what you said specifically about like how many times you envisioned it and wrote it down, it really is like, there's people that do a sport just to try, just to dabble with, that's fine. And then there's people obviously that do it and it is such a huge part of their life. And something like getting a world record on that stage at the Arnold for something that you worked for after coming back from injury, there is nothing else. It almost makes it hard to go back to like real life because in my opinion,
It
like
was.
nothing else compares to that high.
No, and then coming back, we had a week to turn things around and go to the UK, right? So riding that high, going to the UK, winning 2 events in the UK, running that high, and it was just like March was a really good month for me, and being able to accomplish things that I had, and I never like for me, it's hard to believe in myself because I'm so hard on myself. My parents drilled that in me that like always work hard because someone else is working harder than you, and I never knew that I didn't think I belonged on the road roster, and I thought this is a fluke. It's just because I'm winning strongest woman in Canada, where I think Mel's not there. So there's always these doubts of like, do I belong? Do I belong? And like, am I actually one of the best? And to being able to go to the Arnolds and get a couple event wins was a really big highlight in my career, and kind of that head nod of like, you're in the right direction. Keep going, Sam. You're doing good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now when you approach like your competitions, you bring in more confidence. You don't have as much doubt, or you still deal with that.
I think doubt will always be there, but I think for now it's more of a positive thing that I try
Mhm.
to bring out. It's like doubts and pressure, and it's cheesy quote, but it's a privilege to have that pressure and to have those people looking at you and doubting yourself because there's always people chasing. Everyone wants to be on top of the world and everyone's trying to be the strongest woman. And so we're all working hard and you're always doubting, like, did I train hard enough today? Did I recover enough today? Did I eat enough? But I think it just comes with the pressure or the privilege of having that pressure of being a top athlete. And it's kind of cool. Like I'm riding it. It's fun to have Max on the sideline too, like giving me that head nod of like, you're doing good shit. Like keep going.
Yeah, it is 100% a privilege. And I always told my clients, and I would write, I'm very fortunate that when I was competing, I was big into journaling and like writing to myself. So it's cool now to go and look back so I can remember exactly what I was feeling. But one thing I always wrote down before my biggest competitions was that, like, no matter what I did in training, I never felt like I was ready. I always felt like there was maybe if I didn't get injured during, this or have that back flare up, I would be better. But I told myself like the work is done. And I would always remind myself that it's not just this prep. I've been building on this for years upon years, building that foundation. So it's really nice to hear you say that. And then I also want to rewind, because you said prior to hitting the record, you had to go at the top of the athlete class because you had placed in the bottom half in that first event. And that is something that, talk about the mental resilience that takes, because to be at such a high level show and forget about what happened and move on. I want to hear how you did that so quickly.
Yeah, I think our first event that day was a deadlift, and the first event of the weekend, which like you got to be realistic with yourself. You can only pull as much as you can pull, and I knew going into that event I'm not a strong puller, but damn, I'm still a good puller. I pull 535. Like I'm still a really good fucking puller. Just might not be with the top tier, but that's okay. Like I hit a really good PR on that platform, and I was able to move on. If I don't mistake, the second event must have been the timber carry, which it went up 70 pounds from the year before. I still had trained really hard, and I did, I think, mid pack, which was still really good. But I always kept like reminding myself, like, you're here with the 10 best in the world. Finishing 8 doesn't mean that you're bottom. It means you're still at the 8 top of the world. So it's really hard. And again, like I say this like it's easy, but like there's always going to be those like little thoughts in behind your head where it's like, you suck, you finished dead last. No, like actually, I deserve my spot. My invite was given and to me, and I'm going to do my best with this invite. I'm going to work my ass off. And I showed up to the comp and did my absolute best. If you have a very bad event, the thing that you could do is you need to leave it there, because if you bring it with you in the next event, it's just going to demolish you. It's just going to give you self doubts, and you're always going to be thinking about last. Oh, I was dead last in the last event, and how to go out and win the next event is such a huge turn into your like. You got to switch that. You got to flip that switch into like, I'm gonna fucking win this event now. Let's go. Like it's one event at a time, and the strongman's not over till it's over. There's 5 events, 6 events in the day and the weekend, and you got to keep pushing till the end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I saw you celebrate your deadlift PR. Like, that was an amazing pull. Like you were stoked on it, and that was great. Like to be able to
Hmm.
realize, like, hey, this is a PR. I'm happy. Like that's all I can
Yeah.
ask for is my best performance. That's all I can ask for. And if you maybe had a weaker mentality, maybe you would have gone into the dumbbell less confident. So
Hmm.
I just think that's a great example. Whenever I talk to like athletes as incredible as you, I'm always like, I can't wait till my clients watch this so they can kind of, take this in their own competitions, when it's like, you don't really know, like other people who want it are going to show up. So, you're
Hmm.
going to have your goals for the contest. And if you hit them or exceed them, that's like, amazing. You've done the best you can.
Yeah.
Exactly. And like Rogue and Arnold, like they're prestigious shows and they're always watching what you're doing. So let's say I would have finished with day 2 and said, well, fuck this weekend now. Like I'm done. I had a bad day 1 and go into day 2 and I just would have shit to bed. Like again, they're looking at that. So like you fucked on your good event, which should have been your bread and butter. And then like, so it's about showing up for every event. Take that 30, 45, 60-second event and zone out. Don't like forget about anything else. What you've done for the last 12 weeks in preparation for this event, you better show up. And if you do a mistake, recover right away. Don't freak out. Don't get to your knees and start crying. Like you have to own up to your mistake right away. Keep moving on. Day 2 was the dumbbell, which obviously started really well, and then we went into Denny's and the stone medley at the end. I was such in a good mood that day. Like I hit the record. Yes. I went into Denny's. I had a really good showing. I think mid pack. I think 4th or 5th on that event, and then I went on to the stone medley, which I had no stone experience, but I had worked so hard with bags and I had worked so hard, regardless of what the implements were in front of me, that like I finished top 3 on that event. And that was a huge win for me, just being able to be one of the 3 only athletes to shoulder that stone. I keep forgetting about that moment, but like the dumbbell was really cool. But I think that was one of the biggest highlight, as in like showing up for myself and actually proving myself that I belong, was getting that stone to shoulder.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, exactly. You proved it to yourself. Like you had said, like flip a switch. And that's how I usually separate an athlete that's going to stick with the sport to an athlete that isn't, is they're able to just move on like that. And like Christy, like at your last show, I was so impressed with how you handled it. As we all know in strongman, Sam, I'm sure you have stories where sometimes there's like a judging error or just something that is not in your control whatsoever happens. And I have seen that ruin people's not only shows but career. They're like, you know what, I'm done, I'm not going to compete again. I had a client once that knew they won, right? And then like they're calling the podiums up and they all of a sudden are third, and but they knew they won, like we did the math. And then that's why I always tell people, you know, take videos, all of that, but then most importantly is like learning how to flip that switch, because it's like you can't let the outside noise of that day, whether it's your performance or someone else's, affect you. So just like you said, you were in a good mood and you still, killed those events, and you weren't sure about the stone. So I'm a huge believer in, yes, you have to obviously be physically in shape and
Yeah.
prepared for the contest, but the mental aspect of strongman, because in my opinion, compared to other strength sports, there is not a lot of controllables. With powerlifting, it's like you pick it. With strongman, it's like it's kind of a shit show on contest day,
Yeah.
even at the highest of the high, like the Arnold on the pro stage, like shit still sometimes gets messed up, or maybe you can't warm up or you're rushed.
Yeah.
So just for anyone listening, you're probably a fan of the sport, just know that we all have those moments. And that's where I kind of want to go into, Sam. Like, I know you've done a lot of podcasts, but just maybe if someone doesn't know your story, if you could kind of quickly just give us a recap of like your first contest,
Yeah.
how you got into
So
it.
long story short, I was kind of thrown in into the sport. So back in 2017, Nationals Canadian was coming to New Brunswick, so my home province, and I had just started powerlifting then. I had breaking a couple Canadian records, and I was getting on the map for powerlifting. And
And this is
then
2017?
in 2017,
Okay.
Nationals came here and they asked me, "Hey, can you go represent New Brunswick at Nationals? Because Nationals is here, and we need a women to represent." And I was like, I'm not sure what I had no idea what strongman is. And I'm like, okay, but I did a couple YouTube, okay, they do these weird things, all right. So I went to Good Life local gym and I knew I could deadlift there, and I knew I could do the one arm dumbbell press because I had the commercial dumbbells, but the rest was unknown. There was stones, yoke, and a Husafel. So, anyways, went to national, finished fourth, 1 point off the podium at my first. It was my second show ever because I qualified for that, and I did a small local show, and then come back 365 days, and I won nationals. And I turned heavyweight pro then in Canada, and then it kind of just went on like that, and then went to the Arnolds in 2022 as a middleweight, won my pro card there as a middleweight, and got onto the Rogue or the Arnold stage and roster, and kind of held my own and doing the best that I can here.
So how long were you? So I'm taking notes in the back of my head, which I'll go over. There's a lot of, all three of us have a lot in common, but something you and Christy have in common is you started with powerlifting. So it was 2017, you first got into strongman. How long had you been doing the big 3-4 powerlifting?
I think two back then. It was not long. 2016 is when I got hired at Good Life to full towels, and they set me up with a personal trainer, and that's when it started. So
And prior to that, did you have an athletic background?
yeah, I played hockey all the way up to university. I went to university for hockey, and for hockey, not school, and that's why I didn't finish because school was hard. But I stuck around for 2 years, and after that, yeah, I just went to college, got my 911 communication degree, and I went on to being an I-1 operator for 6 years, um, all while starting powerlifting in that thing. And I was just kind of lost because powerlifting wasn't what I enjoyed it, but it wasn't fulfilling what I needed. And same for my job at the time. So when I met Max, and I was already a professional strongman when I met Max, but I was just right at the start. It's when he told me I could move, change job, start doing strongman full time. That's when I took the plunge and said, "Let's do it."
Oh, I love that. And so
Yeah.
that I'm laughing because Christy and I, like I said, we have a lot in common, all three of us, but something all three of us have done is move very far for a significant other. And
And quit
obviously
our jobs. So. And not doing what our major is in college.
Right, nothing.
So talk to me a little bit about like when you left your 911 job and moved. It was now I'm not too familiar with like of how far you moved, but talk to us about that. And was that like the best thing you probably did for your strongman career?
Yeah, so when I started talking to Max, it was like within like a month or two, it was like we were already talking about like, okay, let's move together, let's do this full time. So I went to California Strongest Women and he came to California Strongest Man, and that's where kind of things took off. It was just clicking, and I'm like, okay, so how do we do this? And he had just moved his whole gym to Thunder Bay, which is 36 hours from here. So Easter weekend, California Strongest Man was, I think, in February or March. And then by Easter weekend, I had packed my whole car, let my job go, and I said, all right, I'm moving halfway across the country. So moved all the way to Thunder Bay to be with Max. And I already had a job there when I moved. There was a guy that was just a really good friend from us from the get-go, and he gave me a good government job, and was able to do that full time. And then I started doing full-time PT as well, so 5 6 a.m. before going to work, and then all the way back at night until I trained. And I did that for about 6 7 months, and then I let go to my government job to be full-time coach and an athlete. And it's probably the best decision that I've ever done. I don't like to work for others, so
We can
Yeah,
relate to that.
same. We can relate. Yeah. And also that also just reminds me too of like people trying to become a PT. I know at first it's so hard. It really is. Like you have to have a full-time job, but you also have to spend a bunch of time at the gym. So, and you got to train
yeah,
yourself. So your whole
yeah,
life is just so busy. So you did it.
yeah,
Congratulations. It all worked
yeah.
out. I love that story. I can relate a lot to moving across the country and all that stuff. But maybe just strong women are risk takers, or maybe we know what we want. I don't know, go getters, but it seems like you knew what you want and you got it. And I
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
recently too, you've been like, you guys moved the gym again, or been like, is
So,
that what happened?
yeah, so last year, so when I was in Thunder Bay with Max, my sister came up and she moved with us for a bit, and then she took off with someone she had met. So Max and I kind of looked at each other for a bit and we're like, the fuck are we doing here? Like, both our families aren't from that area. We had created really great friends and family up there, but I have a very big family up here, and I was like, can we just pack our whole gym in a transport and head home? And we started doing the work and found a great location here on the beach. And our gym now is a public gym that's just so cool to be able to witness people come in and try strongman. They want to know about strongman. We're doing demos. Like yesterday, we had the radio station at our gym. We were doing car deadlifts and just showing the public how cool strongman is. And it's not scary going into a gym and not knowing how to do a log or a sandbag, or everyone can learn. We have implements that are super light. Like I have a 60-pound log, a 50-pound circus dumbbell, all the way up to really heavy, right? So it's friendly for everyone. But it's cool to be back home in Atlantic Canada and being able to, I guess, start our next journey here together.
Yeah, it
Oh,
looks beautiful. Hopefully, Christy and I at some point will add it to the bucket
You
list.
guys
Our
should.
travels come up because I think that just the story behind it and knowing you and just hearing how you guys did that. It like again, I see all your training and the pictures. It looks absolutely beautiful. And so,
It's nice.
congrats. And isn't it
Thank
funny?
you.
Because isn't it funny how like the first time you moved and quit your job, it was like very I'm guessing hard, but then now it's like all right, let's just move again. Like just like
Yeah.
anything, it gets easier.
Everything gets easier. I mean, the biggest part of that I've ever got, or the biggest thing I've ever done is to quit a full-time job, not having that paycheck every 2 weeks. Um, and that's what it takes to be an entrepreneur. You got to take that leap of faith of knowing that you're able to crush it every day and get somewhat an income to enough to live. But having that like freedom of working for yourself, creating your own brand, your own business. You ladies know what it's all about. It's that freedom of being able to be yourself into your own brand and just not having to fulfill someone else's goals and dreams, you could do your own by getting that paycheck still.
Mhm.
So it's cool being an entrepreneur, and I think honestly every woman out there that doesn't know if it's the right time to have that leap of faith, there's never gonna be a great time. You're just gonna is if your desire is at its biggest right now, then you should probably do that leap. Because there's never gonna be a best time.
It's so funny because I want to read you a text I got right before I silenced my phone for this podcast. It's my friend who just left her job. She's a professional figure athlete. She just moved from New Jersey to Florida, and she goes, "This is the best thing I could have ever done. I keep dropping weight in a good way because my cortisol level isn't high for the first time in 2 years." So just to hear you say that, because sometimes I'm kind of wrapping this back into strongman because it just like Christy had said, like, oh, maybe it just does appeal to like go getters or something. But I think it's more people that aren't afraid to keep having repeated failures and keep trying, because as corny as it sounds, like, you got to stand back up. That literally is what our sport, or any sport at a high level, is. But then also being an entrepreneur. And sometimes I get frustrated because I feel like I don't have a lot of friends, female friends close by. But like I have friends all over the world, like my best
Hmm.
friend from Strongman lives in Australia. Chrissy is states away. So it's just, I think it's really special, the community that we are building. And I'm so glad that you both, like, I'm not really in Strongman anymore. You guys know that, but like I stay involved. So it's really special to me, coming like from like the first generation of strongman, I would say, to see how it has evolved and to see that we're all supporting each other. Because when I first started, like, I remember sometimes I would leave like crying because I was just trying to take videos of other girls and pictures, and like no one wanted to take a picture with me because I was feminine, I guess. So I don't want to go too deep into that. I'm
Mhm.
just so 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 grateful that now, 10 years later, there are women like us that make up the bulk of the sport, especially at our level.
Yeah. And I'm really actually, I'm really, really, really impressed at, because in strongman, social media and your own brand is important, and boosting yourself up and be able to show the world what strong men and women can do is important. It seems like recently a lot of the pro strong women have really embraced social media. I know that's not all it's about. I think everyone's doing a really, really good job of being good role models, showing the personality, getting their message out there. And it's really, really cool. Like, I know, for me in my role with social media, I started posting to show, like, strength lifts are fun and you should do it too. And now I feel like there's so much more of that. I'm like, they got this and they're doing it way better than me. And like, I'm really proud of everyone, like, of doing that and like having their own business, their own brands, be able to run their own gyms. Like, I just feel like the last few years, people have gotten really good at that and showing themselves. And like, at first, like, I've had conversations with people too, like, oh, Christy, can I call you and ask about how to get sponsorships and stuff like that? I'll talk to them. They're kind of like afraid. Now it's like everyone's doing their thing. They're supporting each other. They're collaborating with each other. So I'm just really stoked. Like, I feel like, because the first strong men started doing it. It was good. And I'm like, now I've seen all the strong women doing it. And
Yeah.
it's really good to see, because it's becoming more popular. Like, when you did the Circus Dumbbell record, was that like the biggest crowd you've been in
Yeah,
front of, or has it been
definitely.
bigger?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it was
No.
just like, I was like, whoa,
I
where have I
know.
been? I was like, I just got here and all of a sudden Strong Woman's really popular. Yay.
I know, and like
So,
one of the coolest part too was like just me walking out. Like people knew that I was a really good presser, and like the crowd was already standing up on their feet. So I was like, I can't fuck this up now. Like people know me, people know what they expected of me, and like
but yeah.
it, and like I think like the growth of like social media has come a long way. I think it still has a really big way to go, but we're just starting to get more comfortable with like showcasing who we are, because at first it's really intimidating, and like I can't just go in shorts and a tank top at a grocery store thinking I'm not gonna have
Yeah.
someone fucking double checking me out. Like they're like, what is this creature, right? And like at first it gets really uncomfortable being like you gotta accept that you are building muscles and that you are lovely in who you are. And so it does take a lot of guts to put yourself out there at first. But I think what's cool is that the world is now starting to accept us a lot more, and they have been like they love us as much now as they have loved the men. And like I do think that at the Rogue or at the Arnold, that the crowd was more electric for the women than it was for the men, and I think we just
Mhm.
stole the show, and it's cool. We can put on a show just as much as the men, if not more, and we just need the people to back us up, to still appreciate what we're doing, and
Mhm.
not bring us down. That's it. They just got to keep lifting
Yeah.
us up.
Yeah, you're right. It is scary also to put yourself out there because no matter what, you are gonna get negativity.
hmm
No matter what, you will
Yeah,
never please
especially
everyone.
yeah,
Yeah.
especially a
So,
girl with muscles, or like,
mhm,
like our frame, and um our deeper voice. Like, I mean,
right.
women, everyone's gonna have a fucking opinion, and if you start not giving a fuck about it, well, that's when
Mhm.
you start being happier.
Right, right. And if you do give a fuck, you don't put up 185 pounds over your head with one arm. So,
No.
so um yeah, life's too short to be boring. Like, go after what you love to do, whether it's
hmm
strongman or you just like really love Pilates. Be passionate about it,
Yeah.
and do it well. That's what I
And
think.
it
But
gets and it's easier what like the second you start surrounding yourself with people that actually give a fuck about what you're doing, everything changes too. Like when I used to train at a commercial gym, there were still a lot of people that were like, not nothing wrong with commercial gyms, but when
mhm,
I didn't have a training crew and I didn't have those people around me, like it was still very uncomfortable, and I still wasn't like quite, I feel, accepted. But now
mhm,
that like there are sports growing and strength women's, like it's a thing now. Like if you still look back at like Brittany, like 10, 12, 15 years ago, like you were unfortunately an oddball out because you had muscles, you look like you train, and you right. And then now it's like, okay, we're starting to see this a little bit more, and it is accepted, and it's beautiful. And I think it's badass that women's want to take care of themselves and put on muscles. If we can, why aren't we not? So
It
yeah,
is. It
I like where we're at.
I especially love that you said that we still have a long way to go on social media too, because
Mhm.
sometimes like when I'm, at a powerlifting meet or interviewing, and I'm so, my life is so involved with this community, but I've been challenging myself to go outside of the community and dabble with different things. And it's funny because that's when I still am like, oh, this still
Mhm.
isn't normal. It's only
Yeah,
normal within my community. So it's funny
yeah.
we definitely still have a long way to go, but I'm glad it's happening, and I'm glad that I'm not an oddball out. But I want to
mhm,
transition now because we all talked a lot about taking risks and failures and injuries, especially. And I want to be completely transparent with. We had
Mm,
originally scheduled this episode, Christy and I, because the prestigious Shaw Classic is a little over a month away in Colorado, and the roster just came out. You were planning to go, you were training for it, but you told Christy and I before, like, I don't know if I should do this podcast. I actually made the decision today that I'm not doing it. I'm like, no, that's something that's very real in the sport, happens so often.
mhm.
So we already started asking
Yeah.
you questions, but we're going to pretend we don't know anything. So tell us when you made this decision and what went into it from your perspective.
Okay. So last week something big happened. It's coming out. But it kind of made me start thinking about, okay, what does my season look like now? And ladies listening, or anyone that's listening, especially newer athletes, yeah, a lot of great competition. Lots of competitions makes you gain a lot of experience, and that's what's great. And that's what I tell a lot of my newer athletes is, oh, I have a comp coming up in 5 weeks. Am I ready? You've only competed twice. I think experience right now is the key, and it's the key. Now, if I look up, I'm 5 years into being a professional athlete. I still do have so much experience to gain, but now it's about being a little bit more transparent about how much do I really need to compete, and to what point do I want to push my mental health and my physical health. Now in our sport, like at first, there wasn't a whole lot of competition. So my season was short. I had my provincial, maybe one, like the Arnold Amateur, and then I would have my national, which is a couple shows a year. Now there are so many big shows, right? Like all these shows around the world, official strongman games, we have Arnold's, Shaw Classic, and there's Giant Live now coming out with shows and North Americans and whatnot. So I put up all my shows up on the calendar, and 2 years ago, I didn't make it to official strongman game because I was mentally not ready. And last year I got there maybe not in the best health that I should have. This year I plan on finishing my season super strong, just like I started it back in March. So yeah, I decided that I still have 4 shows this year, or five, sorry, five. And five from now to December was quite a lot, with only 5 months left to go. So, yeah, I decided to pull out as a competitor. I'm still gonna be there. Max is competing, and I have so many friends that are competing. I have Hannah, my client, that'll be competing as a lightweight women. This is my fifth Shaw Classic. So Max and I have been there since the get-go. Max was an original 10 on the roster. So we are great big supporters of the Shaw Classic. Will be there. And I think this was just my year to focus on maturing as an athlete and really putting myself first into what I really wanted to prioritize this year, as a promoter, as a business owner, and as an athlete.
Yeah, it's such a hard decision to pull out. And it's, for me at least, it's so stressful. And then, but afterwards you're like, oh, that was the right decision. I feel lighter. Like
Hmm.
I feel like I listened to myself, you know, and that, you know, that's a lot of growth. But I feel like, you know, said earlier that a couple years ago, you probably would have just pushed through.
Yep,
What's different now? Is it just, you having to handle a lot of different responsibilities,
that is
or
one
just
thing,
or
but
how your body works?
honestly, it's about like walking your talk. Like I always have these conversations with my athletes that are burned out because they do work the Monday to Friday night, like, and they have three kids, and they are burnt out. We all are. We all have our plates, and they all look different. Like we don't do the same thing all day. I don't have the same 24 hours as you, and so I think it's all about walking my path. So I always talk about making sure that you're fully in it when you're training, fully in it when you're competing. There is so much on our plate this year with hosting nationals, but there's also, I want to defend my fort title this year for strongest woman in Canada. There's a really big show afterwards. And then for OSG, I just want to make sure that I'm a real contender for that top spot. I want to showcase not only to my athletes and my clients, but my family that all of this work is I put in and out, and me missing out on so much family activities maybe, and like things that I am not present when I'm in the gym. Those 3 4 hour session, and being like there's just so much going on, and it was just about making sure that I took care before I went too far like I've done in previous seasons. So yeah, it's just about trying something. It might be the best, it might be not the best decision for me, but I'm gonna make it a really good decision so I can be really well rounded athlete for the end of my season, and a good coach and a good friend, and be present in our lives.
I congratulate you for making that decision because it's not easy, but knowing what you have ahead for the rest of the year, that's a lot of shows. And especially
Hmm.
at your level, like these shows in itself sometimes take like 3 weeks just to recover from physically, never
Exactly.
mind
Yeah.
mentally. So I think you're making the right decision. I'm so happy that you'll still be there. I'll be there. So I'll be able to see you, and you won't
Nice.
get like, it's and I give you credit for that in itself too. That just shows who you are as a person, because I know plenty of athletes that will drop out of the show and then be like, well, I'm not going. I can't watch it. Like, I don't want to be there. So you definitely have the right mindset. You're such a good advocate for not only your clients but the sport in general, because that to me is what we need more of, attitudes like that. So I'm proud of you, and again, I
Thanks.
think using that energy from March to carry to your next shows. I know we can't really say what's coming up, but I just want everyone to know that finally I feel like prayers have been answered for a strong woman growing and getting the attention and notoriety that we deserve. So it's a very 2024 is a very, very, very exciting year.
And it's like what you just said about like the 3 4 weeks prior after a show. Like you don't know what you're gonna feel post show. There's shows where I'm gone back in the gym 2 days after and I'm feeling amazing, right? Especially like if you come up and you win and you do a really well show, you're in the gym a couple days later, you feel great, and then you might start feeling the effect like 2 3 weeks later, right? And I just I want to feel great this year. I want to be in the best shape that I've ever been. And I think this is my year now that like our gym's fully running itself. Strongman Corp Canada is running really well. We have such a great group of athletes here in Canada. And I'm just really motivated in some other little ways, which is not taking away from me as an athlete, but it's putting me in there more in the sport. The Shaw Classic, absolutely that I'm still there and I'm gonna be cheering on the women's in the morning because of the women's that are showing up. That's why we have a sport. And I really like, I love our sport and I want to be here for a long time. And I know the sacrifices that it takes to be active in our sport at the high level. And I think I only have so much fuel in a year to put in it. And I think I'm going to conserve it for to finish off the year with a big bang. But I'm going to be in there cheerleading still because it's bigger than me. And yeah, I love the sport.
Yeah, yeah, it's beginning. That's a good way to put it because there's been times too where I haven't been as mature of an athlete, and I had to. I'll never forget. I felt kind of. It was 2017, so I would have competed with. Oh, 2018. So I think I would have competed with you. I can't remember the timeline. Maybe 2019. I have to look at like my journal, but I got an invite to the Arnold again as the pro, even though I hadn't competed because like someone dropped out or whatever. And I literally made it. I was in women's physique prep, and I was like 10 weeks out, and it was my first time. And I like was weighing the pros and cons, and I was like, well, I know the stage will always be there, but the Arnold won't always be there. That comes out, once a year. And ultimately, I made the decision not to compete, and it worked out because I ended up breaking my wrist, and it would have been when I was like 10 days out of the Arnold, so it worked out. But I think it's something that as you mature as an athlete, it doesn't just come. And like you said, you need all the experience, like in the beginning, like making mistakes, getting burnt out,
Mhm.
truly knowing what it feels like to be burnt out. Because burnt out from strongman plus life is like a burnout you've never felt. It's like it feels like a car accident, honestly. Like your body just doesn't really work.
And your brain, like I feel like 2 years ago, I had a really big burnout. Right before OSG, we had hosted a Strongman National, so we had 200 athletes that we hosted. I also competed Friday night. Saturday we did the Arnold Amateur. Sunday we had record breakers, and then Monday we left for Texas for Rogue Invitational for Max. We went to Texas. Max competed. Then when we came back, I just started crying. I was like, we're driving, and I was just crying, and I was like very depressed and I was so hard on myself. And I was like, it was a really long drive home. I remember it was like a 5, 6 hour drive from the airport. And I was just like, I need to make a decision. Like, I'm not happy with where I'm at right now. And I feel burned out. Like, my so foggy. I was not happy and excited as I once was to go into a competition. And that's when I decided to pull out of official strongman game. And it was a good decision at the time, but I was really disappointed because I had not taken care of myself prior. And but you can only learn from that. Learn before you get too exhausted. Take a step back. Like clients can wait. They know that your mental health's important. Training can wait. You're not gonna get weaker or stronger in a day or two or even a week, weeks. Just yeah, I think the more experience you have and the more years into the sport, in any strength sport, you develop like a maturity into like knowing when to stop, knowing when to take a step back, and I think that's really important to acknowledge it and do something about it. Acknowledging it is one thing, but doing something about it is another thing. So that's what I'm doing this year.
Yeah, because I mean, you definitely learned what the repercussions are of not, slowing down, taking care of yourself. So it's really good that you listen to yourself, pulled out of the shaw. I know it's a hard decision, but now you'll at least have a little bit more of full tank to keep going and
Hmm.
enjoy the process. When you're like
Yeah.
so burnt out, and I get it too, because we're all entrepreneurs, we all train really hard, and it does become a lot. Um,
Hmm.
and just all that stress makes even like thinking or doing work harder. I've had like times like after I compete, I go to do my clients or do some work and I'm like just fog brain,
Yeah.
and just means you just haven't recovered enough. And so
Yeah.
um, all that stress kind of manifests physically. I know my injuries flare up during that time. So
Yeah.
you learn from it and now, making good decisions. But I'm really happy you're going to support still at the Shaw. I
Hmm.
wish I could go. It's a little far for me. But next year, I was tempted to sign up. I was like, I want to
You
compete.
should have.
But yeah, all my energy is in one bucket this year. That's all I can handle. But one
And
next
that's
year.
good. Like you know what bucket to fill. Like I think that's what a lot of people don't realize is that there's some athletes that'll sign up for everything and they'll volunteer at everything and they'll put their hands in everyone's pot, thinking that I gotta get back to the sport, get back to the sport. Yeah, but you also know when to pull out and take care of yourself first.
I mean, I like to think too. I used to think I had to physically be there. I feel like what Christy and I are doing too is my way in a different way of giving back, of like trying to, I'm not saying we have huge platforms or anything, but like you said, Sam, it's everyone has a part in it. So yeah, this was a really, really awesome conversation. Is there any last minute, like what's one thing that you would want to leave, one piece of advice that you would want to leave anyone listening with?
Whatever your journey at Strongman or like you were saying, Pilates, it can be writing a book, whatever you put your head into, just give it all you've got. And be true to yourself. Like don't be doing something because someone else is doing it. Don't be signing up for a comp if you're not sure, if you're tired because someone else is doing it. Just do whatever that truly speaks to you and what really helps you become that better person. Then you go towards that goal. But other than that, you take a step back and you take care of yourself.
Beautiful. All right,
Yeah,
Sam, where can we
great
find you?
advice.
Where can we find you?
Thank
What's your
you.
Instagram? What's the Strongman Canada's Instagram? And is there any upcoming Canada shows that people should know about?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram. It's Sam Belliveau. And then I do have run the Strongman Corporation Canada Federation. So those are all on our platforms as well. I am going to represent Canada at the North Americans in just under 3 weeks now, in Quebec. So my goal there is to hit a new Canadian log press record and then step on the podium. I want to be at top of our North American roster, and I'm just want to have fun and bring awareness. Again, it's cool that it's in Canada, so we can represent Canada here in style.
Love it.
But
Awesome.
thank
I
you,
will put,
ladies, for having me.
thank
I
you. Thank you
appreciate
so
you two
much.
so much. You guys are doing great things for the sport. I think it's cool to bring attention to us women's. It's definitely been quite a journey to be accepted, but it takes very courageous women like you to put us out there.
Thanks,
Well,
Sam.
thank you.
I'll put all those in the show notes as well as a link to the social media and the Strongman. So good luck with everything.
Thank
I'll see
you.
you in person in a little over a month, but you have the Canada show you're running first. So I know you'll be busy. So I
Thank
appreciate you taking
you.
the time again. Thank
I
you.
Yeah.
appreciate it. Thank you, ladies. Have a great
All
day.
right.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.